Who's got questions? Nobody has questions. All right, let's start with you.
My question was for Jim Fetzer. I listened to a radio show with you, but got cut off halfway through. It was about a fellow who was involved in your biometrics. And he said that he did some work with and the John F. Kennedy case.
Can't
with,
hear him.
Robert Brody.
I can't quite make out your question. Just
Well, the question was, oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I was listening to you on a radio program, and the radio program is in 3 parts, but I couldn't get access to the 3rd part. Basically, it was referring to ear biometrics, but how you can identify people by their ear.
yeah. Yours are as distinctive as fingerprints.
Right, and he was going on saying that there's certain people involved in the political realm who might be actors, or they're not exact, or they're doing more than one role. Do you remember that interview that you did?
Yes, this is.
And he said that Jimmy Carter and John Kennedy were the.
This is a fellow named
Dallas Goldbug. Next question.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Okay, sure.
I just wanted to comment about all the speakers having a sort of common thread to them about taking responsibility for ourselves, and that there is a spiritual essence and that we can't be controlled by a larger force. I mean, it was consistent throughout the presentations, this theme about taking our power back and creating something new that's possible within our own power here. And so we're pulling each other up by our bootstraps with this kind of support and creating, in a way, a new society. I won't say new world order, but a new world is possible because of the people here. And I want to thank you too.
Perhaps, Mark, we'll have a chance for everyone to give a final thought. That way we can have everybody kind of get...
Just a bit more in response to your question. That particular guest, who has a certain degree of notoriety online now, which I didn't fully appreciate at the time, seems to me to have an uncanny incapacity to distinguish between different faces. And he's made a lot of alleged identifications that don't withstand critical inspection. On the other hand, as far as your studies are concerned, we've done quite a lot in relation to identifying the man in the doorway, which has substantiated that it was Lee Oswald and not Billy Lovelady.
And according to that person, I'm Weird Al Yankovic. I don't know why he says that. Next question.
I want to thank you for organizers, presenters. I really appreciate your contributions to come here to present. I flew all the way from LA to here. For 3 years, this is the first time I'm able to come out to meet people. Basically, I've been imprisoned by telecommunication by a spy from China for 3 years. He was able to put nanobiosensors in my brain through the high technology that was developed by taxpayers' money, data. He was able to invade our true internet, control our internet, and he has been harassing me and trying to kill me everywhere he can. So I come here, I want to network with people because I feel we got a lot of information here, but I feel the most important thing is the last presentation was talking about our actions. How we're going to unite together. There are many people, organizations like this, here 200, that place 500. We need to unite it, we need to think about actions. Everybody, you bring back to your community, you bring information to your congregation, to your ethnic groups, to your party, to your friends. That is a lot of people. We need more people to know the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so I'm going to ask that people ask a question. And we'll start over here, and then I'll go to you, and then I'll go to whoever else. Grab me, I'm not skipping anyone.
Hi guys, you all were great. It was awesome. I work here in the city at Drexel University, which, you know, they have contracts with DARPA, and now they're working with the DHS. And I work in student affairs. So what advice do you have for people in academia, such as myself? Because I have to be careful what I say on campus, because there will be consequences.
Okay, who wants to field that question? Andy, Alfred?
I
I know Jim probably does. Go ahead.
I just want to say that institutions and universities have gotten in the way of education. And so you start to be conditioned and brainwashed by the institution, and it limits your freedom and it limits who you are. So they're programming you to fit into the society, into the culture. The best thing to do is to leave them and start your own study. That's what I do.
Kelly, I want to tell you that the best way is to plant a seed. We can't beat this truth into anybody's head. You can't make them believe anything that they don't want to believe. But as soon as you start to challenge their own intellectual status by bringing them data that they then want to be superior beings and show you data, allow that. Just feed them a seed, give them a little bit of something to think about, and soon they will all be coming to you, trying to impress you with their data. So really, planting the seed is the best way. Don't try to convince them.
My thoughts on that, to give one more part to the answer, is the best thing that we can be is assertive. And what I mean by that is we teach other people to be assertive. That's what Mark was doing here with his talk. That is, you don't run or you don't fight, but there's an alternative to running and fighting, and that is be your sovereign self and who you are, right? And you can't argue. Argue is fighting. You can't fight with people and argue and win an argument. But you be who you are, right? You don't have to apologize for who you are. And if you love them and teach them to be assertive, they will respect you and they will respect your opinion. So there's a third way to do things. I can't give you a whole book on that right now, but I can at least plant the seed, as he was saying. That there's a third way, not fighting, not running, but to be assertive as to who you are, which is what Mark was trying to.
Absolutely.
Part of what Mark was trying to say.
I would say that academics, as an ingrained character trait, maintain a cognitive dissonance that goes right to our core culture, which is to simultaneously assert that they can state what the state of the art is in their discipline, while simultaneously believing that that knowledge is not affected or is affected by official state secrecy. Academics need to be challenged on the impact that official state secrecy has had on them, their colleagues, their advanced graduate students, their undergraduates, and even knowing what the state of the art is in their discipline as a result of now almost 70 years of official state secrecy in advanced fields, to include quantum physics following the Manhattan Project.
Curtis Davis?
I would say keep in mind that college, or what I like to call institution of lower learning, okay, serves to indoctrinate you, not educate you. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so now if you're at an institution of lower learning, or any institution that encourages you to minimize yourself, not maximize yourself, then you don't need to be there. Places like this.
Yeah, our biggest conference is through higher education, right?
Exactly. Places like this is where you get an education. Drexel University is where you get indoctrination. It teaches you what to think, not how to think. So that's the decision you have to make.
And because this is such an important topic, Larkin, let me ask you, and if you could pass the microphone to him real quick here, I'll hand you mine, and then we'll go to you, Jim. Larkin, is the education system any different than the authority of government these days?
No. And what I was going to say is, I don't want to tell people what to do specifically and get them into trouble. But what you said is a great description of a method of propaganda that is fabricated public opinion. When you have a bunch of people who, I don't really care to say what I think, that's a great way to make everybody think that nobody thinks what you do because nobody hears it. And I realize people have, they have stuff to put at risk by stepping outside the box, but we have a heck of a lot to put at risk by nobody stepping outside the box and nobody saying, I know you all believe it and it's wrong.
Having spent 35 years at institutions of higher learning, I can tell you that the greatest fear of faculty is embarrassment. They don't want a student to ask them a question they can't answer. They don't want to be in a position of having to address a topic that they don't feel they know enough about. They steadfastly avoid issues that are complex and controversial. While I was, the last 19 years of my career was on the Duluth campus of the University of Minnesota, and I was very gratified that the university was very supportive of my research on JFK, where there was an associate dean who loved my work, and I think that gave me a kind of a backstop. But I founded Scholars in December of 2005, just 6 months before I retired, and I'm not sure the university would have been as open-minded, although I did give, in November of 2005, a 3-1 hours on JFK, 9/11, and Wellstone. But I'll just say that, you know, James Tracy from Florida Atlantic University has been pilloried, even by his own institution, this Cooper, you know, on the television, has just gone after him hammer and tong, and yet he's doing exceptionally good work. He's in a department of communication. He does a course about conspiracy theories in relation to communications. He's totally responsible, and I've simply been appalled that Florida Atlantic has not been supporting him in the way it ought to be. I mean, this clearly falls within his purview. He has new articles now about the Boston bombing. I encourage you to track him down, James Tracy. He's an exception to the rule.
But universities are the biggest con game out there, and I know people with 2 PhDs and can't get a job.
Okay, Alfred, real quick, Mark wants to add an addendum, and then we'll come right to you.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to speak to the etymological meaning of the 2 words that have been used here. Indoctrination, and this could really help you clarify, you know, what we're talking about between the difference between indoctrination and true education. Indoctrination comes from the Latin roots that mean to speak into, to program by speaking into someone. In other words, telling them something to believe. Education comes from the Latin educo. Educo means to lead out from. Okay, or to draw out from. So if you look at real education is drawing something out that is already within a person and allowing it to express and shine. Or you could look at it as leading one out from darkness and ignorance. And you have to ask yourself, is the so-called educational system doing that? Is it leading out of ignorance? Is it really teaching self-knowledge? Is it teaching us about the systems of control that are seeking to limit and imprison us? Or is it just speaking a program into us and telling us to accept it? That's the real difference between indoctrination and education. So I just wanted to bring that point up.
Alfred?
Yeah, thank you. I would also like to encourage, and I want to explain, to share the example that we've been doing in EXO University. I would like to encourage people to consider starting independent institutions of learning. And our adventure started as follows. By the realization that the present canon of science and the canon of knowledge is artificially defined. And with regard to intelligence, of how intelligence and intelligent civilizations are distributed throughout reality, functionally, one is absolutely prohibited from teaching scientifically that any intelligent civilization exists out of the 3rd dimension of Earth. That is an absolute prohibition that I've come up against with, and I've prepared curricula on exopolitics for the university system in British Columbia, which is very advanced. And so what we did in EXO University, where we now have a partner educational institution in Germany, and we're now starting a beta program that's based on the Coursera program at Stanford. What Coursera is that they have taken their university curriculum and they put it for free on the internet. And they have classes of up to 300,000. So you can go and you can get a Stanford education for free.
And that's a new concept. So we decided to do Exo University outside of the academic canon to cover the subjects of exosciences, sci-sciences, and exopolitics. Exosciences being the new quantum access sciences, new energy, sci-sciences being parapsychology, the study of consciousness after bodily death, and exopolitics being the study of intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And our beta project is now going up so that you will be able to go and study at Exo University absolutely free. And we're starting this with a beta program with 2 courses going up now shortly, one from our German strategic partner and one here. Andy is offering a seminar, a couple of seminars, one on the Mars, CIA Mars project, and a second seminar that he and I have taught jointly on time travel with an emphasis on teleportation. And right now, the only way that an individual who wishes to learn the exosciences can do that is either by joining an intelligence agency and becoming a spy, or by becoming employed by defense contractors.
Nobody wants to do that, Alfred, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And information should be open source, so this sounds great.
Yeah.
Do you have a website for it?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a website for this yet?
You really want to hurry me up, right?
Well, we want to get that as many questions as possible.
It's exouniversity.org. Thank you, Bob, for letting me to get this paradigm out. exouniversity.org.
I'm sure everyone's going to want to check it out. I'm going to ask people so that I don't have to go all over the place to try to start a line here. Does that sound acceptable? And this gentleman was first, and then I was going to get to you next. And if you could just start lining up, don't jump over people, we don't need a riot here. And if you can also ask a specific question to a specific speaker, that will help us to expedite this process and get to as many people as possible.
For the last few years, I've been reading articles from Nikola Tesla and other scientists. And for Nikola Tesla, I realized his knowledge of electricity, his kind of electricity is different from what we know today. So there's a mystery, there's something more than what we know today. And my question addressed Andrew, and that's about time. I think in ancient time, so in the East is a cycle, like you have morning, night, and then everything is a cycle. But then now in the modern Western world, time is a straight line of linear thinking. So there's a misconception of time, and for Andrew, especially for your experience, you must have gone through some kind of disbelief, or it's hard to imagine your experience. So how do you look at time now? Or what went through in your mind?
Well, I was a child, so I ended up growing up realizing that our conception of time is linear, but time travel allows transepts forward and backward in time. Also, we have to account for the fact that while we inhabit at any given time, at any given moment, a linear timeline, we're living in a quantum hologram of multiple timelines, some of which are similar and some of which are dissimilar. So we have to begin to conceptualize our situation as being inside of a hologram that's being generated by an infrastructure. That infrastructure has been called the Matrix since 1970 by DARPA. Somebody just mentioned DARPA as well as Tesla. And that time travel allows us to move between adjacent timelines in that multiverse. I think the most frequently asked question about my claims is about time travel to the past and the effect of it. And in fact, we cannot go back on our timeline and change the past, because when we do, we have effects in what I call the past's present. At most, what you can do is go back and witness the past event that manifest when you unsuccessfully prevented it, when you time traveled there or never visited it anew. We cannot do the rewrite that New Age thinking and contemporary metaphysics suggests that we can. We can go back in the past and have an effect on the past, but the mere fact that we're examining a past event to go back and change it means we were unsuccessful in the past present. This, of course, is the grandfather's paradox. The solution to the grandfather's paradox is that you can't go back and kill your grandfather, because if you had been successful, you wouldn't be alive to contemplate doing so or doing so. So we have to look at time travel more as a way of enhancing our experience by moving between these similar and dissimilar adjacent timelines, but not playing God and doing rewrites, for example, correcting past mistakes.
Interesting question. A question, please.
Yes, I'm John from wickedvenue.org, and I'd like to say first that thank you to everybody, all the speakers, for taking the time out of your life. The question is, my wife and I have been studying natural law for several years now. We've begun the apostille process, which is to remove yourself as a citizen. Lost, those of you who know about sovereignty, we're all lost at sea on the citizenship and stuck in maritime UCC law. And there's a process called the apostille process to remove yourself from that citizenship and become what's typically termed a non-citizen national. And so I don't know exactly who has experience, but anybody who wants to tackle it, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on anybody who wants to free themselves from the citizenship and doing that process, and how you feel about that.
Well, I will give you an answer from experience from many friends that have tried similar things. And the first few people that tried to use the legal system to get their sovereignty did make progress and had success. There's a book, One Man Out. He actually got himself out of prison. But the idea that you're going to use the world system against itself it doesn't fly, okay? And basically, these people believe that they have right because they have might, and they could care less about the intricacies of the law or anything like this. So, I guess in short, to try to encapsulate a lot of what I would say, a lot of my friends have tried to do that. It didn't work. They ended up frustrated and losing a lot of money. And I think there's other ways that we can become a true sovereign individual, but I don't think that using their legal system is a really viable way to do it.
Can you pass it down, Mark, please? Okay, here we go, Mark.
Yeah, I would say that I agree with Fritz on that. I would kind of add that it's sort of like asking someone else if they could grant you your hand. This is my hand already. No one else can give it to me. I can't go and ask somebody, can I have my hand? It's yours. Sovereignty is a birthright. You already have it. You can ask no one for it. So the solution isn't going into any external system to have them grant you this thing. No one can grant it to you because you already own it. It's already yours. It's a matter of stating your claim to it because you know it belongs to you. That's what it's about.
Next question is for you too, Andy.
I just like to give a lawyer's perspective. I don't endorse this, and I would distinguish it from the brilliant philosophical statements that have just been made. But the defect in the legal assertion of sovereignty is that, in fact, the current American legal system recognizes the fact that the 14th Amendment established both federal and state citizenship. And until that is overturned, there won't be juridical support for legal personal sovereignty, although, of course, there should be. So those asserting, for example, that they're just citizens of their states when I challenge them and say, well, what is in the 14th Amendment? And what's there is the creation of both federal and state citizenship. So you can be required to both put license tags on your state license plate when you're driving a vehicle in that state, and you can have much more serious invasions of your sovereignty. For example, when you're taxed or sent to fight in a war, et cetera, from the federal government.
So this next question is for Andy as well. And go right ahead.
Are you aware of a parallel timeline where the Cuban Missile Crisis resulted in war instead of the outcome that it did now? And also, I have another question. What is the relationship between Project Pegasus and the Phoenix project at Montauk?
I don't know of that specific alternate result or event scenario happening with the Cuban Missile Crisis, but I can corroborate the fact from my own experiences that, for example, chronovisors identify and amplify signals of both past and future events going on, not just on our own timeline, but other timelines. So such notions of alternate event scenarios of things that have happened on our timeline are valid and in fact exist. So I would actually affirm that notion as being a reality based on experience, based on my own experience. The second question was essentially the linkage between Project Pegasus and Project Montauk. As a participant in Project Pegasus, beginning in the late 60s, I can corroborate the general existence of Project Montauk because I can affirm the existence of the chair, which we were simply calling the chair back in Pegasus days, and the role played by Carl Jack Pruitt, who was a lieutenant in the United States Navy, born in 1934, who was a team leader on Project Pegasus. He's identified by Nichols and Moon as the research director of Project Montauk. So there's continuity in both technology and personnel between DARPA's Project Pegasus and the Navy's Project Montauk at Camp Hero. My own conviction, after researching my own experiences literally for a decade, is that in all likelihood and at a high level of certainty, Project Montauk was a spin-off of Project Pegasus that was focusing on all of the potentialities of what we now know as the Montauk Chair, because it had two advantages. The time traveler stayed physically back in the chair and so wasn't subjected to any physical danger. And I know from my own personal experiences in the chair that the Montauk Chair was deriving highly accurate data about the future.
All right, this next question, I'm going to start with Mark to respond.
Hi, I'd just like to say that I really enjoyed this meeting of the minds that this whole thing has been. And my question is, I'm pretty sure I was the only person to pay for my ticket with silver. My question is, why are we still using their money?
Good question. I guess the answer is that's what other people are still accepting as a medium of exchange for goods. When other people we get the idea out that they need to start accepting other media for exchanging goods, or just doing away with that whole concept of needing to exchange anything to exchange goods that we need to live, survive, get along together and grow, then we won't need that system, any system of exchange at all, and we could do away with this concept that's holding us back called money.
Somebody else like to address that, Fritz?
Yes. Back in 1990, I was praying, what's the solution to all of this? And the answer I received when I was praying is that we were to be in community. When they introduced me, they said I had been Amish, and the Amish have their own communities. Where I'm going with this is if you have a community of cooperative people that are like-minded and sovereign and assertive and all the things that we're talking about, you can move forward without using without using the Federal Reserve notes. You can use barter systems, you can use other means of exchange, and you can get away from their system. But if you want to live in their system where you don't live around anybody who's going to cooperate with you, then you have to end up working with where they're at.
I had to wash dishes for my tickets. That's all.
This next question is also for you, Fred, so don't get too far away from the microphone.
It is a real honor. This isn't so much as a question, but some kind of weird synchronicity. I don't know if you've seen the last two National Geographics unsubscribed, and the one that just came was immortality. This man says this data will live to be 120. The one before that was should we clone extinct species? So that's pretty. I don't know if you've seen that. And then also Rihanna just got like a new tattoo, which is the globe with the wings, which is pretty weird. Yeah. So check out this National Geographic. And Andy, I don't know if you read The Man in the High Tower by Philip K. Dick.
No, but I'm familiar with...
It's like the alternate timeline of...
Thank you. I'm familiar with Philip K. Dick, the science fiction novelist concept that he had elisions in his own reality in which essentially individuals from parallel timelines intersected with his. And I can corroborate that happens. Another thing that's active here at the level of quantum physics is previously, when let's say two or more individuals disagreed about an event scenario that they experienced in common, basically as comrades in a particular event scenario. The previous position in the social sciences and in the law of evidence and so forth was either that one was wrong or they were both wrong. But quantum mechanics now teaches us that in fact they could both be right relative to their own experience, in the sense that we are born and we inhabit a time-space continuum in which we are only living, as Buckminster Fuller, I think, opined right here when he was working here on Market Street, right within a stone's throw of this location, that we only live in semi-overlapping realities. And what I found in my investigation of my peers' view of reality, going back to kindergarten, is that I was consistently getting discrepant data that supported the position that the people that you have a common experience with were not entirely in that common experience. And so that would be another reason for this Philip K. Dick effect, where somebody identifies the fact that they are living on their own timeline, but also intersecting with the timelines of individuals who are not always on the same timeline with them.
I'd like to open up this comment about transhumanism in this topic to first Freeman and then Lennon Otter, because both of them have touched on this with their research as well.
What was the question? Oh, okay, yes, that's on my shelf, and I'm working on getting through that. Well, that's where we're at right now. I mean, this is the point that we're at with mind transfer technologies. We already know all of this is real. This is no speculation. The science is there. The Royal Society has Henry Markram on. He's the creator of the Blue Brain Project, which is a mind transfer technology project. Openly, you can go Google it. There's no covert object here. So yes, with human cloning, with the idea of mind transfer technologies, we're at the state of immortality. And it really is a question that needs to be addressed right now. I thought it was going to be a very big deal when Barack Obama came forth with releasing the restrictions on stem cell funding. I thought everyone was going to know that he just offered the open door to human cloning. But no one really caught on. No one really noticed that this was the case. And so here we are, standing at this precipice of having people that could be immortal, and then the rest of us, maybe they'll call the deaders or something. But the transhumanist agenda has me, as I started to look into my occult understandings, and that these people seem to have been selling their soul to the devil, as they often admit. And transhumanism would be a way to escape this devil. And I think that's more what's at their agenda in the hearts of doing all this. And may explain why nations are willing to put billions of dollars into CERN. Absolutely, that's where we're at right now.
Hello, everyone. The greatest way for the human species to clone itself is by having babies. I should know.
Hey, you know what they're going to do about it. Five times.
The other issue of transhumanism, I have a 16-hour documentary series titled The Mortgage and the Non-Sexualization of Technology. Oh, thank you. Amongst other things, it deals with this topic of transhumanism. I'll be very brief. What I would like to add here is that the over-dependency on technology is actually an affront and complicates our ability to connect to spiritual self. Of course, this does not mean that all technology is bad, because this microphone I'm using is in fact technology. But it is the over-dependency upon technology that becomes a problem. So what I would say to transhumanism, I think that just like with anything else, there should be a level of balance. And if you want more insights into my perspective, to keep it brief, check out my series, The Mortgage, and you can find it on my website.
All right, hold on to that microphone, because this next question is for you as well.
Hi, my question's for you. Basically, I've lost count of the amount of movies that contain subliminal associations between black people and animals. Monkeys, bears, and dogs, to be specific. For instance, in Anchorman, one of the last scenes, there's a scene where there's some folk in a zoo, and the bears in the background roar, and then the only two black people who are in the actual film hold their head back and also roar. And that seems to go on an awful lot. It seems to be there subliminally in the background in so many different films and movies. And it seems to me it's a systematic dehumanization of a race. And it smacks of, what happened with the Nazis, how they behaved to the Jews.
No idea what she said.
And I just wonder if you're aware of that, if many other people here actually are aware of it, and if you are, if you're beginning to highlight it in any way, because I'm quite happy to take part in any group that is actively combating that.
Absolutely. The concept of race is, in point of fact, just a concept. It's not a truth. It's not actually backed by scientific evidence or proof. The concept of race as we perceive it today has only been in existence since the 1600s. So if you go far back enough in time and you told someone, yeah, I'm of the black race, they look at you like you're absolutely crazy. Because race meant a competition, a physical competition. But pseudoscience turned the competition into genetic competition and called it race. Okay? Yeah, y'all clap for that, okay? Now, y'all saw a picture, for those of y'all who saw my presentation, did you see a picture of my children?
Yes.
Oh yeah, ain't they beautiful? Yes. They take after their dad. Right? Their skin complexions are different all the way across the board. Do I say that my daughter, who is a little bit lighter in skin, somehow she's superior than my daughter whose skin is a little bit darker? Do I love them any differently? Do I issue subliminal programming for them that makes one feel as if they're less than the other? No, why? Because I love my babies. Mass media does not love the human species. In the dehumanization process of one of us, there is the dehumanization of all of us.
That's right.
Okay, the next question is the last pass that mic over there.
I was fascinated with your talk about the armies of death, and I was wondering, is this written anywhere by you? Can I go on a tour with you one of these days? Or I'm really interested in this one you said was at East Falls with the 5 cannons pointing down. Where is this? Is this next to where I live? I don't know the location of this particular one. And also, one more question. These armies of death based on the prophecy, the Indian prophecy, what? Can you explain that again, why the armies of death tie in with the prophecy?
Okay. Well, I want to comment on that dehumanization of the media first, because I think that the proliferation of zombieism in the media is the means by which they're dehumanizing. Because a hungry man, a malnourished person, a person that hasn't been, blessed with water to bathe for a couple of days, they might appear like a zombie, And with that programming of kill the zombies, I really see that as part of dehumanizing those that might be in need one day, So I wanted to say that. But in terms of the congregation of the dead, if when we talked about the mounds, we said that they were sepulchral in nature, meaning the indigenous would bury their ancestors at the mounds. Then these mounds would also be found on ley lines and grids that the earth's energy circulated throughout, and that they would be aligned with the heavens. So when the mound gritters, in order for them to take full control over a mound, they have to manipulate the ancestral energy of that mound some way. So one of the ways is burying the fallen soldiers of various wars at these sacred spots. And that's, what we would call necrogeomancy. The science would be called necrogeomancy, because it's geomancy, you're manipulating the energies of the earth to, be able to exert your will across those earth ley lines and grids, right? But it's a necrogeomantic dynamic too, because you're using souls of the dead, right? And I don't think I articulated it, but this kind of opens up the possibility that a lot of the wars and battles that were fought, and particularly in the revolutionary and civil wars, were actually rituals, that had that blood spill right there. And you do have these remains of soldiers buried in very odd places. This is all about manipulating the ancestral energy of those sepulchral mounds, And it seems like George Washington has been set up as like the commander-in-chief of this ghost army, this necrogeomantic army. And to specifically identify the monument that she was speaking of. That is a Washington monument. A lot of times when you find something that says Washington slept here, or Washington troops were here, it's sacred mounds. Like Valley Forge is a classic example of that. But the spot that she was asking about is one of those places. It's like the monument is like Washington stayed here for a minute. And it's in East Falls on Midvale and Fox Street. Okay? And it's it's near the Philadelphia Waterworks. So you got to be wise when you're there, because you're not really supposed to be photographing things in reservoirs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You got to free your mouth, folks. The next question is for Freeman. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of Fritz or Freeman can handle it. Basically, what is the possibility that some of our more recent leaders, namely like Clinton, Bush, Obama, that exhibit tendencies for mind control are in fact clones and are without souls? So they're like an empty vessel open to be possessed, per se, or maybe they are enabled to walk the right-hand path, or to look at things from a spiritual perspective because they don't have a soul.
Well, I'd like to say that one of the most curious parts about human cloning and cloning in general is that it requires a shock of electricity to fake that spark of life. So they have to take this cell and they can't make it alive. They've now injected it with the DNA that they want into that cell, but they can't make it think it's alive until they strike it with electricity. And of course, to me, this speaks of Luciferian ideas, the ideas of electricity and how it has been used throughout the ages. You know, electricity is still a mystery to us. We understand its aspects, its properties, but we don't know what it is. Same as gravity. But so this, to give life to a clone requires this spark of electricity, and that gives the impetus that starts that being into creation. So the question if a clone would have a soul is a very large question, and one that I'm offering asking with the Barack Obama situation. Is he Akhenaten or is he Barack? You know, and I personally have come to the idea that he is Barack. He's his own clone, he's his own person, but as Josh Whedon has come out with Dollhouse to show us the ideas of radio transmitted mind transfer technologies, you know, maybe they will then be able to use that to take over the mind of this clone, because at this point it's considered property. Anything they classify, everything Monsanto's feeding us, all the GMO food is classified and patented, and there would be no difference with this creation of theirs. So the difference is in the ownership of it, but the curious note being that electric spark to bring to life, what difference is that between the spark of life that the natural body gives?
Right. My further comments on the subject. Okay. Cisco's father, who was a grandmaster in the Illuminati, he took her to an underground installation, and from her memories, it sounded from the description she was giving that it was like Dulce, which is on the Jicarilla Apache Indian Reservation. A series of underground installations there where they do cloning. And anyway, the purpose of the trip, one of them is he showed her human clones. And he said, don't ever think that if you see someone in the public that you know that you're looking at who you think you are. So the point being that I take from that whole little outing that he took her on was we have no way of really pinpointing exactly what we're looking at, but I can guarantee you this as a fact, that everyone in public office like Obama, Clinton, Bush had doubles. Now whether those doubles were robotoids, or whether they were clones, or whether they were lookalikes, sometimes they take someone who's a lookalike and do plastic surgery on them, but they all have doubles. They have this thing scripted out, and they don't have anybody in an important position unless they have a backup. Because what if on the script they had to have that person doing something on a certain day? They got to have them there. You know, they can't have them sick or off buggering the little boys. He's got to make his presentation. You know, so there's doubles to all of these major figures of some kind.
I think I can support some of these general points with some highly specific information germane to the CIA's jumping program of the early 1980s, of which myself and Barack Hussein Obama were college-age participants, which is that we were brainwashed via electronic dissolution of memory, both at the conclusion of our training for the program under Major Ed Dames in summer of 1980, and then I personally had a second episode, basically, of dissolution of memory following my last jump to Mars in spring of 1984. Now, in furtherance of the notion that the president, well, he's been called a Manchurian candidate, but I think he was somebody who was similarly brainwashed to compartmentalize his Mars experiences when they were occurring and to not think or speak about them after they concluded, I would support that assertion that he was controlled in that way and still may be, by citing the fact that when Bernard Mendez, one of the whistleblowers, communicated with President Obama through an intermediary about 6 months ago, he remembered me, and they said vividly, we had roomed together for a period. But when you try to think about the Mars Jump Room program being on the surface of Mars, Obama stated that his memories were dreamlike. And to the extent that I know that this electronic dissolution of memory technology was used on myself and Brett Stillings, and to the extent that I was also identified as a future president, I think there would be what we call in the law a rebuttable presumption that the president was subjected to brainwashing both after his training in the Jump Room program and then shortly before leaving the program.
Interesting. This next question is for Lennon R.
Lennon, hi.
Hello.
This is a question based around, obviously, the psychological aspect of the trauma-based mind control around 9/11. And I went back to my hotel room across the street with my mom, and I was totally blown away with your talk. I had never thought about it specifically like that. And this is just a little smattering of 20 minutes in the room. There was airplane problems in the Caribbean with some random airplane that were just kind of like giving like a little horror story with the horror music of what might have happened last year on an airplane. Fuselage from 9/11 was just found in New York. Supposed associates of the older Boston bomber brother that died on 9/11, so there's a double whammy there.
All 9/11, huh?
2 for 1. Yeah, Boston bombing 9/11. Anthrax letters are being mailed. It's mentioned that the Freedom Tower was going to be finished this week. It's just like, how much of this, in your opinion, and this is a little bit of a chicken or the egg type of question, is deliberate around the media, being it's from alternative and mainstream and all kinds of media, and how much of it is a collective unwillingness to consciously go through that trauma?
It's a combination of both.
Equally?
Yes, because in some cases, folk who are the victims of trauma-based mind control programming do not want to deal with their programming. Okay, that's one of the greatest challenges. And that goes for everyone here. Brother Curtis talked about this, the dark side that we all have. When I say dark, I'm not referring to skin tone or the concept of race. That we all have issues. Raise your hand if you got issues. Those of y'all who ain't raising your hand, either you think you're too good or you're lying. But to face it allows us to resolve it. I want to make one other comment. Where'd the brother go? Yeah, I said brother too, by the way. Because the city of brotherly love.
And sister.
That's right. Now tell me, when did you get that information? Just today.
Yeah,
you heard it
too
too?
nonstop.
Now, do y'all think that I went home after the presentation? I went home and then I came back for the presentation? No, it's in the book. Now, what did I say at the beginning of my presentation? If you know what's going to happen in advance, is there any reason to fear it?
No.
So as this continues, this cycle, this mass media cyclical programming that is PP, perfectly predictable, there's no reason for any of y'all to get into a state of fear. Even in the midst of all your family members getting into the fear, and all your friends and co-workers, relatives and neighbors, you can still maintain your peace. That's the light to the world. Let me say one other thing. This will continue to build until we get to about May 2nd. I'm not psychic, although I'm not going to admit that I am. It's perfectly predictable. After May 2nd, that propaganda will fade out. Mark my words.
Is it possible on May 1st, May Day, the birthday of the Illuminati, that they'll tell us they got Osama bin Laden again?
Look, Mark knows. He already knows this. Because there's a cultic aspect to this too. I'm just pointing out in terms of how it materializes in mass media. But the other point I want to make here is that it will fade out slowly after May 2nd, and then in the 6 weeks leading up to September 11th, it's going to start building back up again. It happens every single year. It's been going on since September 11th, 2001. Something to think about.
Absolutely. I threw out my Tavistock Institute device years ago, and the problem was I lived on the 3rd story and I almost hit somebody, so you gotta be careful when you throw the TV out. This next question goes to Larkin Rose.
I think that's deeper. Oh yeah, okay. You had commented about when there's two sides warring, and if you ask both sides who's the good guy, they'd say they both the good guy, that's you?
Right, yep.
Okay, I want your feedback on this because to me, like the divine God creates people. We're not negative or positive people. We're just people. Positive, negatives, and judgment. Same with experiences. There's no such thing as positive and negative experiences. They're just an experience to be learned from. So my feedback I'd like from you is there's this new statement that's like a new paradigm. And if you can think of Hitler and Jesus and everybody in between, the satanic people, the Illuminati, in every moment, everyone is showing as much love as possible. Because, again, a universal rule is people do what they want to do because they want to do it, like we're all here, and people don't do what they don't want to do because they don't want to do it, which is why we're all not home. So, the people who are into satanic worship or the Illuminati, aren't they just simply, they've gotten it from their ancestors and that's the most love they can sadly show in the moment. Like Hitler, that was the most love he could show through weapons, but he wanted this bigger race, and yet Jesus wanted a world peace. They both wanted world peace, the same intention, but their approach to it was obviously opposite. One was kind and truthful, one was not kind and truthful to him. So what's your feedback on that?
Well, I would say that the perceptions of people, whether they understand what reality is or not, has a huge amount to do with what their actions are. A lot of people say, well, Hitler was insane, and if we argue about the definition of that, I might agree. I would also argue that almost everybody on the planet is insane in the sense that almost nobody sees reality as it is. And there's lots and lots of different influences that can make people not see reality as it is. Not see reality. And then they create a Nazi reality because they don't see reality. So I think, the people, I would generally agree with the idea that each person is doing the best he can given his perception of reality. And that's why one of my main focuses is if you fix people's perception, then the world will fix itself. Because the perception matters. I don't care if somebody loves me if their view of reality is so mangled that they show that love by trying to kill me.
And they love to hate.
Right. But I would say, maybe excluding sociopaths who seem to just be lacking compassion.
They want to.
They're doing what they want to. I wouldn't exactly call it love, because the whole problem is they completely lack empathy. But they're still doing what they want to. But for everybody who isn't a complete sociopath, I would say that this is why the perception has to be fixed. Because I don't care whether somebody's intentions are noble. Most of the SS, their intentions were noble. They thought they were the good guys. This is why it's so important. It matters what the truth is. It doesn't matter if, we love and we care and we're doing our best. I don't care if people are doing their best. I care if people mean well and if they understand reality. And the two have to go together or it destroys humanity.
Absolutely. This next question for Alexander. But first, a quick comment about that? No?
Pardon me?
Never mind. The next question for Alex, and then we'll go to Mark. Yes, I got that. Thank you.
Oh, well, we gotta let him use the, ask the question first.
Alex, having been living completely off the grid and traveling, are there any possessions that you either miss or you feel that people just generally take for granted? And my next question is for Mark. If it accurately reflected your research, would you endorse What on Earth is Happening, the musical?
That's probably one of the most bizarre questions ever asked. Alex Hansen, you've done a lot of traveling. Your answer?
I guess the easiest way to answer that is I want to challenge myself to see how little I can actually live with.
You know, after living most of my life in Portland and spending a year in Dallas, Texas, I wanted to see what it was like to live without worrying about money whatsoever. So I think that one of the biggest issues that I think what we call the truth movement is, and this is just my perspective, is the difficulty in creating those independent communities off the grid, doing things off Facebook, doing things in person. And I think that's one of the best things that we can focus on doing for ourselves, to create those communities that aren't based on internet connections. So that's one of the things that I've been doing is, for example, knowing 20 neighbors. I've known more neighbors living in the San Luis Valley of South Central Colorado than anywhere I have lived my entire life. Now I've also had to navigate through a bunch of sociopaths and alcoholics to meet other people that are conscious enough to realize that we're out here for a reason. We just can't take this land for granted. So I think that that's pretty much one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that if somebody wants to truly expand their consciousness, trusting synchronicity, trusting the universe to provide what you need, that is the ultimate vision quest that anyone can take in this modern day and age. And that's, thank you.
What on earth is happening, the musical? Interesting. Can you sing for us? Bullshit!
I would say, like Ben Stewart spoke to on day one, art is a really powerful means of tapping into source. So I would say if anyone wanted to take the research that I've shared on my site and in my podcast and turn that into some form of art, including music, sure, why not? Go right ahead. You just got to promise me there's going to be some rock and roll in it.
Awesome. All right, this next question is going to be open, but I want to start with Jay because I think he'll have a good response to it.
Yes, I actually just got here today. I wanted to just ask the panel in general, how do you feel about the use of intention or reverse symbolism to combat the threat of martial law?
Jay, do you have any insight? Come on, I'm putting you on the spot here.
I mean, as far as I know, we are being bombarded by symbolism all the time. It's used to hold our consciousness in a certain frequency. As far as martial law goes, when they collapse the dollar, I think that's when we'll see martial law.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Anyone else? Andy?
I think looking at the Orwellian democracy that we find ourselves in, it obviously needs to be reformed. What we need is a presidential candidate who will speak the three two-word phrases that you never hear U.S. presidential candidates speak. Police brutality, prison reform, and police state. Those words are always memory holes so that at the presidential debate level, no candidate ever challenges the militarization at the federal level of local and state police forces.
Can I say, you guys are still like Washington right now. Can you answer the question? Can you answer the question? Can someone answer the question? Can you say it again?
Yeah, ask your question real quick again.
The question is, how do you feel about the use of reverse symbolism or intention to combat the threat of martial law? Okay? Because on a dollar bill, which is a Federal Reserve note, the word federal, if you look it up, is actually a contract. We're all under contract. Okay? That's what the deal is. We all, through the birth certificate, we're all under contract. This is how they're metaphysically manipulating everybody. So, can we just break that with our intention?
Tim Smith?
Yes, I just want to give a short answer to that. I think it'll take a lot more than just using reverse symbolism. At this point, it's going to take physical force and people gathering together to just say no and to resist and to say, you try it, we're going to resist, and that's it. And at that point, that symbolism comes to our words and our actions symbolize that. So if you want to consider that symbolism, then that's how we're going to do it, by standing up against it and symbolizing the word no.
I agree you have to have the physical part. You also have to have the spiritual capacity as well, like he was saying.
Right.
You have both sides.
You gotta have spiritual and everything else. Swami, speaking of spiritual, and by the way, folks, we're coming to the end here, so we're gonna go in rapid fire mode. Okay, so Bob Tuskin's gonna be a little rude and get to the point, get to the questions. Bear with me, it's nothing against any of you, I love you all. Swami.
Intention is a wonderful tool, but it is a limited tool. What you're looking for is what actually will produce the results. And what will do that is, as Fritz was saying, is coming into, in Sanskrit we say Sangha, the community. All of us pulling together. The Amish, without electricity and hydraulics, put up barns all the time. We can do things of that nature by just working together. Each of us have a piece of the puzzle. Bring your piece, put it next to my piece, you put it next to his piece. That is the intention coming alive. But it doesn't mean martial law will be stopped.
Right, right. Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I feel again that you have to have both going on. You have to have community and intention.
Agreed. Without the intention, you don't get the community. But the individual only being intent on something alone is ineffective.
Yeah, I have personal knowledge and participated in armed revolution in Cuba, and I know many of the principles there personally from Fidel Castro on down. And I've also, in India, met with the descendants of Mahatma Gandhi. And I believe that here and now, there needs to be an American Spring led by many Mahatma, and whatever the female version of Mahatma is in Indian, Gandhis, of peaceful resistance out in the community and going out and saying that they're false flags. I also come from Latin America, which have deconstructed all the dictatorships in their countries. And there's a lot of democracy going down there, and the housewives walk through the streets banging their pots and pans. And that's how things get done. Thank you.
Okay, this next is going to be a quick question for Andy.
Yeah, Andrew, I just had a quick question about the dynamics of the living environment on the planet Mars. Was it like domes, or was it all the inhabitants all live underground, or how did they survive, the inhabitants of Mars? I was just curious about that.
After the solar system catastrophe around 11,500 years ago, where debris from space struck Earth and Mars, damaging both very severely, Mars being 40% the volume of Earth, being damaged more severely than Earth, and losing much of its ionosphere, some of its oxygen, and virtually almost all of its biosphere, with oxygen only being produced from its lithosphere today. The humanoid inhabitants of Mars sought refuge underground. Some were buried during the event, and because of those dangers on the surface, including not just damage to their dermis from being out in direct solar radiation because of the lack of an ionosphere, but also factors like predation on the surface. They live primarily underground on a cooperative basis between the three typologies of humanoids in the Martian, the existing or surviving Martian biosphere.
Thanks, Andy.
Question.
Let's go to a quick comment over here.
I have a question for anybody who has an answer to this. Has anybody heard of the People's Public Trust 1776? Yeah. And if you have, please tell me.
The People's Public
what
Trust
you
of
found.
1776. Is anyone familiar here with it? Well, we're going to have to do some research. Maybe you can speak at the next conference. Somebody's in the audience. Let's go from the speakers to the audience and get an answer. What do you say? We all learn from each other.
The One People's Public Trust is supposedly, when the gentleman mentioned about the birth certificate, and we're all under an energetic hold through paperwork. They filed with what's called the Universal,
UCC.
the UCC, the supposing governing body of everything, of every United Nations country. We're all actually, the United States is a corporation. Every United Nations country has been, they're incorporated. They all run under something like UCC law. And these people have filed some sort of a paperwork that supposedly, not only through the paperwork, it cancels out every corporation, that it's energetically going to help with this shift. But now, they're on the same channel that the Freedom Reigns circuit, which introduced people like Drake, Galactic Federation of Light, going to come and save us. So do your own research on this. They say they filed this paperwork that they have canceled out every country that is a corporation, so I'm just not sure. I'm not sure.
They were attorneys that got together and did this, but I just wanted to know if anybody knew any more information on it and what they thought of it, if they know.
Okay, one more quick comment, and then we got to get to other questions and wrap things up. We're over time here.
He mentioned that he sat in a chair at Montauk and saw the future. So I want to know what the future he saw.
Okay, good question, man.
Well, I sat in the Montauk chair in Morris Plains, New Jersey at my elementary school. There were multiple Montauk chairs. And during those probes, even though I was living in Morris Plains and going to school there, had only one immediate relative. My uncle Ed was then living in Santa Barbara, California, and no neighbors or family friends or relatives who had ever worked as lawyers. I actually identified the fact that in adulthood I was quote-unquote a lawyer in Seattle, where I sometimes practice. So the Montauk chair probe is a magnetic transducer that does one thing, which is it bumps human consciousness forward in time so that you pre-experience a 15 to 20 minute episode of your own subjective future. And so what I saw were snippets of my adult life, and those have been highly accurate. So I've had maybe 25 to 50 deja vu episodes since being an 8-year-old in the Montauk chair in Mount View Road Elementary School in Morris Plains. But I would have to share with you my life experiences, which is the data that was retrieved via the Montauk chair, because that's the data that it permits the recovery of. When I went forward in time via teleportation to 2045 to retrieve microfilm summaries of future events, I can say that on that timeline, which presumably was the one we're on, by 2045, teleportation, Tesla teleportation, is so ubiquitous that we have eliminated automobiles with all of the attendant benefits of having done so. Teleporters are literally stationed at the neighborhood, the office building, and the home setting, and people are moving around via advanced teleportation, so we absolutely get rid of one of the greatest banes to our environment and the quality of our life, which is the internal combustion engine, just as Vice President Gore stated in his book.
Fascinating stuff from Andrew Pisciago. We're going to get to quick questions here. We're in rapid fire mode. Talk to him after, okay? I'm sure he's very approachable. Here he goes.
This one's for Mark. I meant to respond to Mark's comment about Hitler, but I'm glad Gandhi was mentioned. Hitler was proud that the super German scientists invented method speed, a super drug to make Superman more super, and a lot of what was wrong with Nazi Germany had to do with method addiction. The truth is sometimes nowhere to be found for the people who know it. It's hard to find in all kinds of different corners. The main thing wrong with Nazi Germany was methamphetamine.
Interesting. Okay, she had asked, and then I'll get to you two real quick. And we're wrapping things up. Thanks for being patient, folks.
My question is for Lennon or anyone else with young kids. I have a 9-year-old daughter that I'm raising in consciousness. I'm assuming you homeschool your kids, and I'm wondering what kind of curriculum you use.
Excellent question.
Yes.
And one of the preeminent issues that seems to be underdeveloped and under-addressed, if you will, happens to be the value and importance of the family institution in all of this. I talked about that a little bit in Solomon. presentation today. My wife and I, we have 5 beautiful babies. The first 2 we gave birth, and I'll say we, because it's a collective thing. We gave birth at a birthing center. The last 3 we did at home unassisted, and I delivered my last 3 babies with my own hands. A man who embraces this power fears nothing. This also means that he's also willing to do what he has to do for his children to make sure that they reap the reward and benefit of being raised appropriately. And my wife and I, we homeschool. We feed our children nutritional meals. There's no television in the house.
No high fructose corn syrup? Come on, man.
As for curriculum, we look at each one of our children. They're each unique. They each have very specific talents, and you have to be able to key in on those talents at a very early age. Whatever those talents and gifts are, you provide them with the resources that they need to begin to develop those talents. The public education system doesn't do that. It provides a regimen for all children, and therefore it becomes a program. One of our primary objectives with our children is to make sure that they tap into their internal genius and maintain it throughout the duration of their life.
We're all born geniuses. And this is something that I touched on during the last portion of my talk as well. And I don't think we necessarily have to school at all. Perhaps we can look at unschooling for direction on this topic and at least provide the critical thinking, the trivia, grammar, logic, and rhetoric as a foundation so they can decipher what's what, especially in a world with so many lies. Let's get to some final questions here, and then Mark has 2 more questions, and then Mark has a final announcement.
This is for Jim. This is kind of a dark question, but what is really holding them back from having a scorched earth policy? Because we are all waking up, and they have technology. And Dr. Judy Wood has also spoke about 9/11 and how buildings came down. What's kind of holding them back from just going ahead and doing it since we're waking up so quickly, as I think?
Well, it's probably a lack of mutual understanding. I mean, I think that the alternative media has, in the instance of the Boston bombing, been completely brilliant in dissecting and exposing the fraud perpetrated by the government. But you're really talking about some form of organized resistance, and most Americans are highly disorganized. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of passivity. Most Americans don't know quite what to do, nor do they clearly understand the problem they confront. And the soporific effects of television and beer and football are just a profound attraction for most Americans. So, you know, I wish there were a really clear answer to this. I do continue to believe that 100 million armed Americans is our greatest resistance to national tyranny.
And if they kill all of us, who will be their slaves, right? Next question is a general question, and we'll end with this question, and then Mark has some killer announcements to close this fascinating conference.
Wow.
She forgets the question.
My name is Funia Ife, and I hail from the motherland Africa, but currently I am living in Brooklyn. And I want to tell you that I am so deeply moved by this whole phenomena here. I am a crystalline living being. And when I feel something in my heart chakra opening, listening to the brilliance of the human condition here. I want to let you all know that we have the power within us to get this thing online, to align with each other and love one another. And like one of the speakers said, if you're moving with this kind of force, there is no false evidence appearing real. That is the fear. False evidence appearing real. Each and every panelist up here is dynamic, and all they are is creating a spark within each and every one of us, reaffirming and reminding us that we can rise up to the occasion and mush down Babylon. Because when I hear about all of the BS going on, I'm saying, who are these things or beings, or who the hell do they think they are that they can control my spirit? Spirit means to be inspired. Inspired means to be in spirit. So if you make up your minds, you know, like you're mining crystals and everything, mine yours, we can achieve anything that we want to. And the illusion of this black and white, it's all BS and it's all a program. I want to thank you from the very top of my heart for this learning experience, because I was iffy about coming. But my brother Russ then said, Kafunya, I see you here. And I'm so happy. May the Most High, Goddess and God, keep you in alignment, keep you whole, keep you blissful, keeping the knowledge so we can move forward and march down Babylon. Peace and blessings. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Bruno, what a great way to end the conference. Thank you. Now we'll close with Mark Pasquio, the organizer of this conference, along with Michael Falsetta and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, get on your feet, everyone. Let's feel the energy.
Really quick things, okay? Everyone is welcome to join us at the after party at Ruba, 414 Green Street. We could party into the night, okay? I want to have all of the organizers come up front, please. Everyone who helped with the organization of the conference, please come on up front. You know who you are, and take a bow for everyone, please. Come on up. If anyone is in the other room, please have them come in. Come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, these people made this event happen. Let's hear it for them. There's a few more. There's several more. And I just want to acknowledge Michael. Come here. Without this man, this event would not have occurred. Let's hear it from Michael Falsetta. Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here, making this an event that no one here will ever forget. We'll see you over at Ruba Hall.